All right. Well, it is Thursday night Wait, it's not football, right? No, it's YSS Let's Talk Live instead. This is why I'm not a sportscaster, Ryan, because I just don't have that voice. Not working. But I tell you what, it is YSS Let's Talk Live every Thursday night, live here on Facebook. And tonight we have a very special guest. And we look alike too. I see this. Mr. Ryan Doyle, YSS Substance Abuse Prevention actually coordinator over the substance abuse program with YSS. So Ryan, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Long time watcher, first time participant.
I know, and this is exciting because I have seen you in the past comment on the comment box and chime in, and now here you are live with us. This is pretty darn exciting. And again, I can't get over this. Did you plan that? You know what I was wearing?
I had no idea. I just figured, I wanted to make sure I look professional and represent YSS, and I think you must have had the same idea.
Well, there we go. And I love it because Ryan and I actually work in the same department. Under what we call CYFD, Children, Youth, Family Development, and under the subcategory prevention. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit more tonight, and specifically about substance abuse and substance abuse prevention and everything that Ryan does. Before we get to that, I want to say that we have a special week coming up. And I've heard about this, and so I'm anxious to have you tell me a little bit more about it. If we see folks out there walking around with a red ribbon, or if you see some big red ribbon on a school, or if you see people wearing red this next week, Ryan, this is your area. This is your week. So talk to us about what this redness is all about, this red ribbon.
Well, thank you for setting that up. Yeah, Red Ribbon Week is it's been going on for quite some time. It got started back in 1985. And it was because we had a Drug Enforcement Administration agent who was investigating drug trafficking down in Mexico. And unfortunately, he was kidnapped and he died. But what his hometown did in Calexico, California, they started honoring his sacrifice by wearing a red ribbon. And that then spread. The First Lady of the United States, Nancy Reagan, picked it up and made it a bit, started publicizing it. And now it is one of the largest, if not the largest, drug abuse prevention awareness events in the entire United States.
That is incredible. I worked in prevention for a while with substance abuse and did drug education. I did not know all that information about that it came from, you said Nancy Reagan, right?
She popularized it. Yeah. It really started from a small town that lost someone close to them as a result of the drug trade. And in order to bring awareness of the harms that drug trafficking was having on to them personally, that's where the red ribbon came from. And it just kind of spread from there. A lot of people really felt with that message and decided they were going to spread it to other towns.
And one thing I love, if folks go by the YSS headquarters in Ames, and during Red Ribbon Week, traditionally it is red. You will see huge ribbons out there. It takes a lot of decoration efforts. And in the past, I've been honored to be a part of this with various middle schools, elementary and high schools, even doing different giveaways. Students can write essays about the risks and the harms of drugs. And I remember one year, goodness, Ryan, this would have been 2 years ago, we gave away to the top essay winner, I believe it was of Ogden, middle school or high school, really nice, what do you call those headphones? Beat headphones, I think?
Beats headphones, yep. I think those are the popular ones.
Oh my goodness. And you should have seen everybody trying to write those essays, get that in there. But the point was the education. And ultimately, Ryan, that is one of your big things, as I understand, that you do with YSS is the education sector. Can you talk just a little bit as a prevention specialist And as the alcohol, tobacco, other drugs, program coordinator with YSS, what do you do? What does your job look like, David? I know, big question.
It's a good one. What is it you say you do around here? Yeah, no, that's a great question, and it is one that it covers a lot of different topics. So my main thing, as well as some of the people that work with me in the substance abuse department, is to go out and teach and talk to the community about substance abuse, and trying to implement some prevention strategies. One of those is evidence-based education. So we have programs that we implement in schools that we have been tested and shown to be effective at reducing substance abuse. So that's really important, because we don't want to just go in there and say some stuff and hope that whatever we came up with is good. We want to use something that has some scientific backing to it, that we know this works.
Well, and I know, and I need to check my facts here. But when you're mentioning Nancy Reagan, do you know, Ryan, where the "just say no" came from? Was that Nancy Reagan?
It was indeed. Yeah, that was her thing. She went to a lot of drug rehabs and talked to a lot of people who've been affected by drugs, and she got some really troubling stories from them. And I think part of the idea back then was, if you talk about the scariest things that can possibly happen, then kids will hear that and say, okay, well then I'll never do it. And we refer to that in the prevention field as fear-based education. And it had some effectiveness, but not long-term staying power. So we don't really work with that anymore. We have different ways of trying to talk to kids about it.
Yeah, and that's just what you were talking about with that evidence-based programming, right? Or the evidence-based, so just say no. Thank goodness for Nancy Reagan launching this and knowing that there was an issue, but we now know that just say no wasn't necessarily the end-all solution.
It wasn't.
And I, even in one of the curriculums that I'm familiar with, Project Alert, which is the evidence-based curriculum you were just talking about, that you go into the schools and you work with, just say no is one way of saying no. And you think, but how many other ways could there be to say no? And I can ask you, because you're an expert, Ryan, how many other ways do we teach to say no?
We usually, at least in our program, we talk about at least six ways to deal with substance abuse in general. And those include things like changing the topic. So you don't necessarily always need to take a stand and say, I'm not going to do that. Someone says, hey, I want to have a cigarette. You don't have to do that. You can say, yeah, I'd rather go get some ice cream. Change the topic, move it along. No is always an option. No should always be something they know that they have the power to consent of what they put in their body. So we don't skip no, but it's not the only tool we give them for their toolbox. We want to give them a lot of other things to rely upon.
Yeah, and that is so awesome. And these programs that we're talking about, goodness, back when I was in school, and I'm older than you, Ryan, I hate to break it to you, I'm guessing.
A little bit.
Don't push it. But yes, so, I am a bit older than you. However, I'm guessing, and correct me if I'm wrong, when I was in middle and high school, for my drug education program, it was the health teacher ultimately that taught the substance abuse teach, and that's great, great knowledge. But now we ultimately bring in experts like you into the schools. And like that curriculum we were just talking about, Project Alert, I mean, there's, my goodness, what? You're going to have to help me here. 11, 12 different sessions.
11 different lessons we go through.
11 lessons strategically placed to work on that. And there's like a year one, and then year two, you come back and you reinforce that information, right?
We do. We call it booster lessons. We come back the next year, find out how they've digested over the last year, what we've taught them, and then we also just kind of reinforce what we talked about, and also talk about some new things, because 8th graders, which is when we come in and do the boosters, they have a different perspective than 7th graders. Yeah. They have a couple more choices. They're about to go into high school. A lot more things are on their plate. So they have a different perspective, and they can look at what we talk about in a little different light. So we love that chance to come back in there another year.
Okay, so you're going into the schools, you're talking about substance abuse. let's get it out on the table here. Is substance abuse something to even be worrying about? Why is substance abuse something to be worrying about, Ryan?
It's a great question. It is. If you wanted to talk, the most basic thing, we'll talk about, economic things that are going on. And there's a chart here. I'm not sure if it can be zoomed in on, but it talks about some of the costs, the direct costs that just in dollar amounts that we have to deal with substance abuse. This is not the human cost. This is just pure financials. So you can see, I think on that one, of course, it's a little smaller on my screen, but you can see the difference: tobacco, alcohol, illicit drugs, and prescription opioids. And I mean, just that last one, prescription opioids, 28 billion just in healthcare costs, and 78 billion overall costs.
So that is, I mean, you're talking billions, and just in financials. I mean, this is crazy. Wow. And those statistics that were brought up there look like they're also pretty current as well. I was looking at 2019 statistics there and 2018. And so just again, from the financial perspective, let's talk about, YSS, the organization that we're employees of, that we work for. We service various counties all throughout Iowa, and there's reaches in every county practically, but let's talk just Story County. With Story County, is there an issue as far as substance abuse and what we're talking about? And as an expert, talk about this, Ryan.
Sure. So I'm going to see if we can zoom in on these two, just on one of them. But on that left one there, we talk about, you can look at alcohol, because for a long time, people worry, well, what's the drug to worry about? Alcohol is unfortunately the king of drugs that we worry about here in Iowa, just from the amount of people that get impacted by it and the amount of people that have to go to drug rehab treatment because of it. So here we can see this is 2018 Iowa Youth Survey data, which that's a survey we do every 2 years to test to see, to get an idea where the youth are feeling about substances, what their usage patterns are. And I think we took 70,000 results from different students across the state, including ones in Story County, which produced these numbers here. So we can see here, 16% of 11th graders in Iowa drank in the last 30 days. So that's not the worst in Iowa, but it's not the best. And part of that has to do with their perception of harm, as well as where they're getting it. So we can see binge drinking, which is having 5 or more drinks in a day. 8% of 11th graders indicated that they participate in that. Again, it could be better, could be worse, but we much prefer 8% than 10. But you can see where they're getting it too. We see 8% got it from a party, but another 5% got it from a parent or guardian, and even 6% drove or reported driving after using it.
And let me also ask this, Ryan, where are we getting this information from?
So the Iowa Youth Survey, they don't just break it down by the county. They also can break it down, or they don't break it down just by age group and grade level, but they can break it down by county. These are all anonymous, so the youth don't have to worry that they're going to be tracked in any way or that we're going to know what they personally did. But this gives us a good bird's eye view of what their attitudes and beliefs are, so that we can kind of get an idea what is the topic that we need to focus on. And this is the 2018 Iowa Youth Survey. That's because it takes a couple of years for us to get all this data crunched and then get it out to people like us so we can talk about it.
Right. And with that information, then we can ultimately kind of tailor programs to kind of address the needs. Throwing kind of a curveball here, but talking about substances, I mean, alcohol, tobacco, all these other drugs. I also understand that, methamphetamine use is on the rise here in Iowa. Is that correct?
It is, unfortunately. It is not nearly as bad as some of the other substances that we see when it comes to the amount of people that are having to go to treatment because of it, or that are diagnosed with a substance use disorder because of it. But it has risen in the past couple of years, which is not what we want to see. It's risen statewide. It's not locally focused, but it is something, in this particular county, but it is something that anything that happens a county over, problems don't stop at the county border. We want youth all across Iowa to decrease their substance use, as well as adults.
Yeah, and focusing on, last week, if you watched last week's YSS Let's Talk, it was kind of a focus on our partnership right now with law enforcement and learning so much of the information too on that side of things. So this is kind of, again, I'm kind of geeking out here, if you will, Ryan, but this is cool because you have the Iowa Youth Survey where we can take all of this information. And we also help administer that survey in the schools and during the program, so we can get that most current information. Then we have the partnerships and the resources that we do at YSS to combine with like the law enforcement and ultimately to deliver the most effective programming, classes at middle school, and address the needs that are out there. So kind of segueing right into that, what is YSS doing to address this need and to address substance abuse?
Well, as I said, we do have the Project Alert, which is an acronym. It stands for Adolescent Learning Experiences Resistance Training, and it's how we go in there and we talk. That's a 7th and 8th grade program. We also have Too Good for Drugs, which is a program we bring into our elementary schools. So we can even talk to them at a younger age and try and get them to understand, that we don't nearly go as in depth with the elementary school kids as we do with the 7th and 8th grade about some of the things, but we do talk about general things, why smoking isn't good because your body needs oxygen. And that's not good to put things like that in your body because you don't want to harm it. We also work with other organizations as well. I mean, just speaking of partnerships, that's a perfect segue there. We work with not only just people within Story County. We do work with law enforcement. We do work with other community partners, but we also work with coalitions across the state. And that we have the AC4C, which is the Iowa Alliance of Coalitions for Change. We partner with them to do a couple different things, not the least of which is a youth group. So we have a group of youth from across the state of Iowa that get together and do substance abuse prevention activities. One of them is social media. So you can see here, this is the AC4C Youth Instagram page.
Nice.
Most of these were actually created by the youth themselves. So that, we have one where they are showing them Googling what's in a Juul and pulling up what Juuls actually have in them and what some of the chemicals can be in there are. And that includes benzene and other things. And some of the other ones talk about some of the statistics, like the Iowa Youth Survey statistics. And some of them are just fun ones. I know they've used their own pictures of their own pets for some of the things, like talking about how secondhand smoke can not only impact you, but it can hurt your own pets. Things that not every kid's going to think about initially, but when you bring it up, it really makes them take a step back and think about it.
Well, and AC4C, did I hear that they also go to the Capitol?
They do. So they host an event every year called Day on the Hill, where they bring youth from all across the state. I think last year we had 250 plus kids that came, and they then get talked to about how they give a little primer on how you can talk to a legislator. And then we bring them into the Capitol building and we have them go up to the legislator doors and they fill out a little request to speak to their legislator. And if their legislator is available, they come out and they get to talk to them and say, hey, I'm a 7th grader in your county, in your area. And I want to talk to you about why I think it's important that we tax alcohol more so that people like me don't have friends that get addicted to it. So it's harder to get. And the impact on them is real. You can really see that's certainly, it's one thing to get an email or something. It's a very different thing when you're talking to a school age student from your district who wants to talk to you about something, and it really makes an impact and gets them involved too.
Absolutely. And speaking of this group AC4C, which we're talking about, this youth group, can anybody become a part of it? Is there restrictions, and how do folks get involved? If somebody's watching this and they're like, this would be awesome to get a part of, how do they go about that?
They sure can. We don't. The only restrictions is for the actual youth members. We want them. The age group we work with is 12 to 18. Okay. Above that, they can certainly help out in other ways, but the real work, we don't want it to be adult led. We don't want to tell the youth to do anything. We want them to come up with their own ideas, then work through them and implement them, because we found that youth who are part of the whole process of a project are much more involved. It's their project. They get invested in it. So anyone who's interested could go to ac4c.org/youth, and they can read more about what the youth group does, some of the activities. They could email me because I'm the youth coordinator, so I can get them, invited to any of the meetings, or they could just go to ac4c.org, which I think we should have a link on yss.org as well.
Okay, awesome. So there you have it. You can go there, and I think we also have a little audio. And can you set this up, Ryan, what we're going to listen to?
Sure. So our youth group came up with the idea. They wanted to make their own PSA, their own public service announcement to talk about something, and marijuana was the focus. So this is a 30-second radio ad that they entirely wrote the script for. They entirely planned out, recorded it, and the only thing we did is help get the recordings together and put it out there. So
nice. All right.
Have you ever considered smoking marijuana? Are you tempted by the cool kids?
Well, while you may just see it as weed, it's actually a big risk, not worth taking.
Getting caught could mean not getting into college, becoming one of 6 people who become addicted as adults, and don't even think about sports. Not cool.
Marijuana will negatively affect every aspect of your life. Be smart, don't smoke. Now that's cool.
This message is brought to you by AC4C Youth, the Alliance of Coalitions for Change.
Okay, bravo. So, and that message is out there, put out there, and that is done by AC4C, correct?
It is indeed, and we are in talks to get it as an ad on Spotify, matter of fact, because we talked to the youth about, hey, where do you hear radio ads? And a lot of them said, we don't hear car radio ads that much. We actually get it from streaming services. So we're in talks with Spotify to get it on there so that hopefully youth around can hear that, and they can hopefully hear that message.
One thing I love about YSS is, we not only serve youth, we work with youth. So if you want to know what works best with youth, ask them, and they'll tell you. And just like that Spotify, a great example of that. And again, let me back up here real quick. If you're tuning in right now, this is YSS Let's Talk. We are live on Facebook. You are invited. If you want to ask a question, make a comment, you have an expert on alcohol, tobacco, other drugs, substance abuse. Ryan Doyle, a YSS prevention specialist, is here. And so you have that comment box. You're welcome to chime in there. And if you're watching and you're a parent, you might be wondering what it is that you can do to assist or what you can do to help. And let me throw that to Ryan there. So Ryan, what can parents do to help out with this topic we're discussing tonight?
They can do a lot. So we have the chance to go in and we can talk to kids for 11 lessons spread over 11 weeks. And then next year come in for 3 more. And sometimes we can talk to them in elementary school for lessons. And sometimes we can see them in the community, but we never going to equal or even get near the amount of influence or access that a parent has to a youth. Parents are the ones that we want them involved in that conversation. We don't want them to just listen to us. We want them to talk to their own parents and hear what they have to say. So a lot of our lessons include take-home assignments that we want them to share with their parents to get that conversation started. It could be a tough one when not everyone's comfortable with this topic to say, hey, let me talk to my kid about how I feel about, them drinking or smoking. Maybe if I talk to them about it, maybe they'll do it. And that's not what we found. We found that instead, making your values clear to them is really important, because we don't come in there and tell them, hey, you're going to be a bad kid if you smoke. We don't say, instead we say, here's what can happen to your body when you smoke. So we are pretty values neutral. We don't try to impart our values on other people's youth. But a parent's job, it's certainly their place to talk about and share their values with their youth. So they have, obviously there's the practical steps that aren't just talking. You can monitor where there is alcohol kept in your home. You can keep a good idea on what they're doing, what kind of activities they're getting it up to, and who they're involved with, and also how you're modeling drinking. So if you drink a lot in front of them, that could certainly impact how they view alcohol. But a lot of kids don't realize their parents went through peer pressure. Their parents had peer pressure when they were younger, probably more in certain subjects, because smoking used to be a lot more prevalent. I mean, you used to be able to, I'm old enough to remember going into a restaurant and having a smoking or non-smoking section. And that is certainly something that impacts how you are going to view substance use when you see it more. So parents had to experience it. They went through it, and not every child, I think, knows that. And that's a great way to start that conversation, to have them say, hey, you know, I know what it's like. Your grandfather smoked and I saw it all the time and I had to make a decision not to do it. And here's why. And that conversation doesn't have to be a big sit down affair. It could be a casual one. You're in the car, you're watching TV and you see someone smoking on a TV show. You know, hey, let's talk about that real quick.
Yeah, kind of those teachable moments. And if you're in the area with YSS and the programs that we offer, take advantage of those homework assignments. We don't call them homework, or I try not to, because the kids don't like that too much. But it's an open dialogue that you can have. And you were just talking about peer pressure, Ryan, and from me teaching Project Alert, I remember, isn't there like an activity that bases, they bring home this worksheet and their parents get to talk about the peer pressure that they experienced when they were a youth and when they were a kid. And I mean, I've had some aha moments as a teacher as those students bring back in those worksheets and they talk about that peer pressure and that, yeah, I mean, when you look at your parents, you don't really think of them as kids and you don't think of them as youth. And just truly incredible. So you can open that dialogue, is from what I hear you saying, take advantage of those teachable moments, be it TV shows, be it if you're even on a walk, maybe you're taking a walk and you see a cigarette butt on the ground, to use that as an opportunity to talk about things, open up that dialogue. So parents that are listening to this, and again, Ryan, throwing this out to you, what steps can they take at home if they're interested in learning more about substance abuse, or even really educating themselves to be prepared to answer these questions that might come at them?
Well, the one thing that obviously we have resources I want to talk about, but before we get there, I think there's a couple basic steps I can throw out. This is not comprehensive, but just some basic things that I think can help them with that conversation if they do get into it. And part of it's letting your youth know how you feel. You know, how do you feel about, you know, people under the age of 21 drinking? Is that acceptable in your household? Do you have a particular opinion about whether or not drinking underage is harmful to them? Most people do, but they don't always make that clear. So saying, hey, this is how I feel about it. This is the behaviors that I expect from you, my expectations of you, and how that impacts your own behavior. Youth, we want parents to be the first word, because someone's going to have a conversation with them about alcohol or drinking or tobacco, vaping. But if you get there first, yeah, or marijuana, absolutely. Unfortunately,
huge topic right now. Yeah.
Yep. So we want them to let them know how you feel, and the other one is to listen to them. I've heard that before from some youth, you know, that they wanted to start that conversation. Some youth have already experimented before the topic comes up. And if you start off the conversation by saying everyone that uses alcohol or smoking cigarettes is a bad person, they may not always see you as the safest person to continue that conversation with. So listening is in a lot of conversations, obviously, but in particular, this one is a great tool to use. And if they have used, you know, try to understand why. You know, I highly doubt there's a lot of parents that ever think, okay, my kid's using because they really thought there was health benefits to tobacco. Most of them don't. They have a reason. They might have tried to impress a peer, or they might have tried to make someone like them. So try and understand why. And then they might at some point realize, hey, my kid actually has been using too much. They have a problem. And if that ever becomes the case, we have a lot of resources here at YSS that can help them. We have treatment. We have world-class addiction professionals that can do all different types of therapy. And I'm sure we have some links on that are available for YSS.org, but we can even do telehealth now, so we can help them without them even leaving the home. So things like that. The important thing is to remember that addiction is a disease. It is a lot of things influence it. I've heard some people say it's just family history, and unfortunately, it's not just family history. Even if you don't have anyone in your family that's had that addiction, you could still be at risk of developing it depending on how you use. So no one's immune from it, but the good news is no one's alone in dealing with it. We have a lot of really qualified people out there that can help, and we have a lot of resources to get parents on board with how to talk to their kids. We also have some other things. They could find out more at YSS.org. We have our substance abuse prevention page there. They could also use the National Institutes of Drug Abuse, drugabuse.gov. It's a pretty easy website, and a lot of resources there for them. They have some infographics there. They have a whole section just on talking to your youth. But yeah, a lot of things like that. And then we don't always, and I know, Rusty, you've been a part of this in the past, there are coalitions in counties that can involve community members as well.
Yeah, and talk about, I mean, because I know, like, if anybody from Boone County, I've been a part of the Boone County, I believe formerly known as the Safe Coalition, and now I don't, since I'm not active with that coalition anymore, although I provide them lots of support. They're going by a different name now, I believe. Do you know?
I believe I think it's still Boone County Safe, but they also go by the Healthy Youth Alliance.
Healthy Youth Alliance.
Yep.
What I'm thinking. And so it's even more broad and encompassing right now. Phenomenal organization, actually, an organization that in the past has even hosted events that are alcohol, drug-free holiday events, great ways to get involved in your community, great resources, experts that sit around that table that talk just right there in Boone County. In Story County, Ryan, I know you're really active with a lot of those coalitions and committees. What are some of those?
So we have the Story County Prevention Policy Board, and that is a group of community members. We have law enforcement representation there. We have educators. I think we have people from Iowa State as well as from the Ames School District that all come together, and we try and see what are the issues that are going on. What actions can we take? They've been around for well nigh into the early 90s, and I was not a part of it back then, but I'm a part of it now. And they do a lot of different things. They were very instrumental in helping get the Smoke-Free Air Act passed first here in Story County, which then later became a statewide law. Talk about, no smoking in restaurants and things like that.
And if people want to jump on and be a part of this, I assume these coalitions are pretty welcoming.
They very much are. I know we have a link, I think links to both of them on the substance abuse prevention page at YSS.org.
Okay, so if you want to become a part, again, and oh my goodness, I'm going to say it again. I say this every single YSS Let's Talk. It takes a village. And that's going to be, I need to get a t-shirt that says that, because it does. It takes a village to do what we do. And that's that community connection, the resources, like we've already talked about, law enforcement, of course, the various state organizations, but the community members, the schools, the youth. Youth are a part of so much that we're talking about right now, and even the coalitions, the different, organizations. So if you want to be a part of that, and Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you mentioned going to www.yss.org to find out more information. Go to the prevention services page there, or call 515-233-3141. I can tell you that whoever you talk to there at that number, I've called it multiple times, they have the answers to everything. Well,
they
okay.
do.
They're going to still regret me saying that, I guarantee you. Okay, not everything, but they can direct you to the proper resources and ultimately where to go. Speaking of resources, other resources you want to mention right now, Ryan, or shout outs or directing folks, because this is such an awesome topic, big topic, important topic to talk about. So resources, referrals.
I'd love to do another plug for our partners over at AC4C. They are obviously a statewide coalition. So even if you're watching this and you are not here in Story County, or Boone County, where we also have some services, there might be a coalition near you that you can get involved with and you can start helping out. And they have a whole map and it shows you all across the state, and you can just click on it and it'll tell you, bring you to the social media page for that coalition. They're really great. They also obviously have links to the youth group that I'm a part of. So if you have a youth anywhere in the state that wants to get involved in substance abuse, earn some community service hours, and help out other youth across the state to stay drug free, obviously the AC4C youth page. There's also some good, if you want to follow the youth's Instagram, that's at AC4C youth, and the link right there on the page. And then on top of that, we also, obviously, we have some state partners that help us out with a lot of different things. So we do a lot of, I know, John, you had just a couple weeks ago, talk about Quitline Iowa, which is our tobacco cessation program here in the state of Iowa. They also now have a youth-focused one, My Life, My Quit, where they can help people under the age of 18 with texting, because not all of them really want to pick up the phone. Some of them prefer texting. So now they can do texting counseling on how to quit using tobacco products like vapes and regular cigarettes, of course.
And I know that on the chat here, we have a lot of resources that are coming out that we're talking about. So be it Quitline Iowa, that you can call. And one of the things I love when I'm going to jump back and talk about the in-school programming, Project Alert that we do. I remember one of the questions, and it's been, a little bit since I've been in the classroom teaching Project Alert, but one of the questions talked about if you enroll in a tobacco cessation program, like Quitline Iowa, or a program that helps you quit, how much more likely are you to quit? Do you remember this answer, Ryan?
I don't off the top of my head. I know I've heard, now that you're saying it, it's coming up to my head, but it just snuck out as soon as you mentioned it. Do you know?
Yes, I do, because that was
good.
Because it's like 40%. And so I always say, well, is that 100% that quit? And they're like, no, that's not 100. I was like, is it a lot better than 0? And they're like, absolutely. And, even around the classroom, asking them to raise, if you know of, and I say, I don't want to know names, but if you know of a smoker, or you know of somebody who smokes, or you have a friend that smokes, or a friend, raise your hand. How many hands do you think go up around the classroom, Ryan?
When I do a similar kind of thing, I see practically everyone knows somebody or has somebody that they knew of or is friends with in the same grade level that they've seen. Everyone gets impacted by that. Luckily, we're doing work on it here. We use that Iowa Youth Survey. We see cigarettes are at an all-time low here, and I think a lot of that has to do with education. And vaping spiked a couple years ago, but I think just anecdotally from what I'm hearing in classrooms, I occasionally will throw out an easy question to them: Is vaping safe? Just ask and I almost always nowadays will get hands saying, no, it's not. And the kids know they're getting the message. We're getting it out there, but not all of them do, and that's why we have these resources to help the ones that don't quit.
And that is about education, like you said, and when I ask them to put up their hands, again, no names, that kind of stuff, it's not to shame, it's to say, okay, good, because now you know what we're going to be talking about, because, you know of somebody so now you know what we're talking about. But boy, you're right. We've seen the level of smoking tobacco go down. We've seen, and you're exactly right. It's because of the programming, Ryan, that you're offering in the schools, that evidence-based, and what YSS is doing, getting in the schools, delivering this information. When I started teaching drug education, I can tell you, talking about Juuls and talking about, electronic smoking devices, or ESDs, and I would say, do you think it's dangerous? The majority of the answer that I got was no. And so that is so encouraging to hear now, that doing the education and now really just informing on facts, like you said earlier, not fear-based, not trying to scare, not trying that, these are the facts, and then ultimately really engaging the parents at home and the caregivers to give that constructive dialogue. This is exciting. And I really hope that folks that are watching this will share this YSS Let's Talk video, get the information out there. And if you want to be a part of this, again, Ryan, where do you go if you want to be a part? We've already talked about it, but let's go again.
YSS.org. Great
There.
website, lots of resources, so many different things you can learn some stuff. Yeah, we got it. We're both representing it tonight, of course. It's not just a fashion trend. It's useful. It tells you the website you need to go to.
And this is true when we talk about this here. It is true community connection, and it's true resources. So even if it's something that we might not directly offer, guarantee you we're partners with somebody who does, or we work ultimately very, very closely with somebody who does. So Ryan, before I let you go, any other shout outs, anything that you want to do? This has been absolutely wonderful, enlightening, encouraging people to please share this video. And I need to even check comments, because I've been watching to see. We have a lot of resources out there. And a lot of things. I do want to say that we have Jackie Matt. She wanted to say such great education for kids and parents. Thank you, Ryan and Rusty. So
we like what we do. I know that's true of me, and I know that's true of you. This is where our hearts are at. We like doing this. We love going out in the community and getting that message out there, engaging the youth. And getting them involved. We don't want to do all the heavy lifting. We like getting them in there and making them a part of this, because if you're working on a project, you put your heart into it, and we want the youth, we want to help them. And part of that is not always just talking at them. Some of it's really getting them on the front lines.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, well, thank you, Jackie Mott, for that comment there. And again, you're welcome to comment even after this video is out there. And again, the big thing is go to YSS.org for more resources, more information. And Ryan, can folks contact you? Because I know we talked a lot about you doing in-school programming, but do you also go out and speak to various clubs or various organizations, that kind of stuff?
I do indeed. I try to make myself a resource, and YSS as an entire organization as a resource available to our boards of health, our town halls, anywhere that we can get in. We'd love to be there, be part of the conversation, help out where we can. They can absolutely reach out to me personally, Doyle at YSS.org. If it's not something I personally can help them with, I'll know how to get them to the right person. Well,
and again, this is we have experts right here. And when I say experts, I know Ryan is an expert because you are a certified prevention specialist. And I don't know if folks know much about that, but to become a certified prevention specialist, it's almost like a 2-year degree ultimately, right? I mean, it takes like 2 years to become a certified prevention specialist. And I don't know, how many hours of training and in-person work experience?
Oh, it's a lot. We got to take, the Iowa Board of Certification, has a lot of different things to go through, because they want to make sure if you're going out there, they want to give you the tools and make sure you have the training to go out there and ethically as well as competently deliver prevention, in whatever form it is, whether it's youth development, whether it's education. We want to make sure we're getting it out there right. So we have when YSS is, of course, that's what we want to do. So yes, I luckily recently finished that long process of getting certified. So
there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce to you certified prevention specialist Ryan Doyle with YSS. And again, how exciting is that, though, that if you're listening to this and you know of a need in your community or in your school or in your organization, that you can just call up YSS. You can actually call up Ryan even and say, hey, here's my question, or could you come in, or could you, suggest some resources for us? So Ryan, thank you so much for being on YSS Let's Talk tonight. Truly awesome, wonderful, wonderful. And it is an honor to work with you, may I say.
Well, the honor is mine. As I said, longtime listener. I'm really glad I got the chance to be on here with you, Rusty. It was a lot of fun.
All right. Well, thank you again, Ryan Doyle, certified prevention specialist with YSS, and he's a prevention specialist over our substance abuse program and our alcohol, tobacco, other drugs. Truly an expert. It's been a joy to have him on here. I will say next Thursday night, I invite you to tune in for a repeat I will say a repeat YSS Let's Talk guest because she is so awesome. Samantha Kemp Carlin, our YSS mental health therapist, is going to be talking to us, and I am thrilled about this. She's going to be talking to us about superheroes and healing with superheroes. If you go back to YSS.org, you watch one of the previous episodes with Samantha Kemp Carlin, she talks a little bit about this and gives you a preview about how she, as a mental health therapist working with youth, uses superheroes to ultimately connect, parallel various things, and really work with youth. This is exciting. I'm going to have to catch up on my Marvel movies here. And I'm going to have to be Googling some superheroes. So that is next week, 7 p.m., right here on YSS Let's Talk. Please share that information. Right after we're done, I wouldn't be surprised if it's already out there. There'll be a advertisement for next week's YSS Let's Talk. As simple as just share. Share that. Get that information out there. Again, any more information that you request, YSS.org. That is the place to go. My name's Rusty Johnson, also prevention specialist. Ryan, thank you so much again for being here. Truly appreciate it.